Hello, friend. You can rest here. No tasks tonight, just a quiet tour of the ocean. We will move from bright shallows to the deep, then back to coasts and ice. If this calm journey helps, consider liking and subscribing so others can find it too. Why the ocean? Because it touches almost everything. Our weather, our shores, and often our mood. Roughly half of the oxygen in your next breath comes from tiny drifting plants at sea. You do not need to see them to accept their gift. The fact is enough. Here is what to expect. Short, gentle scenes linked in a steady flow. Clear images, simple words, no rush. We will start where light is strongest, slip into deeper rooms where sound travels farther than sight, then return to places where land and water hold hands. The sea often introduces itself as sound before sight. A soft hiss where grains roll and settle. A low push and pull you can feel in your chest. Salt on the air that feels clean and familiar. We leave the bright shallows the way evening leaves a room. Red light fades first, then orange and yellow. Blue stays longer and guides us downward. From below, the surface looks like handwriting for a moment, and then it clears. A warm current leans against cooler water and draws a hidden boundary. Fish gather along that edge because their bodies read small changes. Eddies peel away and circle for weeks. Boats pass over without noticing, but the line remains. Kelp takes hold where rock meets light. Fronds reach upward and slow the water into green rooms. Otters wrap themselves in those fronds and sleep without drifting. The forest moves together and rests together. Past the last ribbons of weed, the bottom drops into wider shapes. Old river canyons cut the slope and open toward the deep. On calm ledges, corals build small walls in darkness. They add to their rooms grain by grain. Where the planet breathes, chimneys rise from the floor and exhale hot water. Minerals bloom from that breath and fall as dark snow. Around them, life runs on chemistry instead of light. Tube worms open and close with careful timing. Pressure grows with depth, and life adjusts. Soft bodies keep their form with tuned chemistry. Bones lighten or thicken as needed. Movement becomes careful and clear. Here, sound travels farther than light. A low note follows a special layer like a hall. It passes under storms and ships and arrives without hurry. You feel it as a calm weight more than a sound. We rise a little, and the water softens. A ray glides past with a slow, even rhythm. Small fish clean its skin in tidy lines. Nothing here looks rushed. Seagrass holds sand where light still reaches the floor. Tiny fish hide between blades, then appear again a few strokes away. Carbon slips into the roots and stays buried for years. The water clears as the meadow works. Mangroves stand where land and sea meet. Roots braid into safe rooms for young fish and crabs. Stormwater slows inside that maze. The trees breathe through narrow tubes that poke from the mud. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. At night, a band of life rises toward the surface to feed. With daylight, the same bodies sink to shade again. Early sonar mistook this moving layer for solid ground. Now we know it as a daily commute. Some waves live inside the water instead of on top. They travel where lighter and heavier layers meet. A diver feels them as a sudden chill. Satellites catch faint lines that give them away. Sea ice grows in rooms of long winter. Salt is pushed out as crystals knit, so the ice floats. In hard cold, brine drains and freezes a hollow finger downward. It moves slowly and leaves a neat trace. Tides keep time with the moon and with the shape of coasts. Some harbors lift twice each day, others once, others mixed. Tables predict those lifts months ahead. and the water keeps the promise. Work and rest follow that schedule. A long swell can travel for days from storms now ended. Lines arrive in sets and settle the surface into order. You can stand under a clear sky and still feel that memory. The shore answers with a small pause between breaths. Beaches do not stand still for long. Sand walks down the coast under steady waves and wind. Bars build and break and then build again where they prefer. A shoreline looks new after a week and old after a season. Fog enters a bay when warm air meets cold water. It softens edges and quiets plans. Horns speak in slow turns and then wait. When sun lifts the fog, it does so like careful housekeeping. In clear tropical water, the surface becomes glass and color. Parrotfish grind coral into sand that later becomes beaches. Damselfish guard small gardens with steady effort. A manta circles a cleaning station and leaves at ease. The open ocean looks empty and holds many lives. Flying fish hold the air for a short glide. Shearwaters skim the skin of the sea in straight lines. Dolphins knit and unknit the surface with even turns. Far below, marine snow falls in slow, thin flakes. It is made of tiny shells, waste and dust. Amphipods move through it and leave no mark. When lamps go dark, the water looks calm again. Sometimes the water glows with living light. Small bodies flash when touched or stirred. A paddle stroke leaves a cool blue trail and then nothing. Wonder appears and then clears the page. Currents and wind gather floating things into long lanes. Leaves, foam, and small creatures collect there. Sailors follow those streaks when the horizon goes blank. The sea shows a tidy habit when it can. Rivers reach the coast and spread tea-colored plumes. Fresh water rides above salt for a while. Salmon and other travelers read that taste like a map. They return with an accuracy that feels like memory. A reef city changes pace between day and night. By day, shapes are clear. Branches, domes, and plates. By night, soft mouths open and search the passing water. On some moons, the whole city releases eggs and sperm together. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. A storm draws hard lines and then moves on. Whitecaps write fast phrases and erase them in minutes. After the front passes, long waves return. Sunlight slides down the sides of the clouds in steady sheets. In polar rooms, new ice forms a thin skin and then a field. Open patches called polinias act like doors for breath. Penguins and seals use those doors with short, exact motions. Sound there is crisp and clean. The Sargasso Sea holds golden weed in a slow loop. Eels begin and end their journeys inside that gyre. Small crabs and fishes use the shade like a moving town. Plastics ride the same paths and stay for years. Out beyond the shelf, seamounts rise like flat tables that never met air. Currents lift over them and sort life into layers. Sharks patrol edges where lift is strongest. Turtles pass through like steady travelers. A wreck settles beyond a bar and becomes a reef. Sponges and soft corals coat the frame over time. Fish sort themselves into doorways and rooms by habit. Loss becomes structure and keeps working. In fjords, a lens of fresh water mirrors cliffs and sky. Beneath it, older salt keeps to darker tasks. Seals draw commas on the surface and then slip under. Winter thickens the lens into a short, careful floor. The planet's winds sometimes relax, and warm water leans east. Rain shifts, and coasts answer with new patterns. Later, the winds tighten, and balance returns another way. Names help us follow this talk, not steer it. A hidden channel guides sound across basins. Whales send low vowels that travel for hours. The notes bend and return without losing shape. Letters rarely go this far without help. Marine lakes of heavy brine gather in small seafloor bowls. Their surfaces ripple under passing currents. Edges host creatures that cross with effort and then rest. A submersible nose returns beaded like morning glass. Not everything that floats is lost. A log becomes a raft and hosts a town. Barnacles, small crabs, and fish set rules for space. Weeks later, the town beaches and goes quiet. Where rock meets sea as fresh basalt, the world feels new. Pools warm and cool with the short wind. First residents hold fast and accept heat and change. Later, softer bodies claim the calm corners. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. Internal tides rise where the moon pulls water over a ridge. They travel for long distances and break on slopes in the dark. Nutrients lift into higher rooms and feed the day above. The pantry refills without noise. On open charts, the surface is not perfectly level. Gravity tugs a little harder over dense rock below. The sea mounds and dips by centimeters across wide basins. From those clues we infer hills and valleys we may never see. Lagoons behind barrier islands act like gentle nurseries. Tides pump through narrow passes with a steady beat. Marsh grass knits land to water in strong lines. When seasons turn, the color and smell change first. The deep holds quiet even when the surface argues. In the SOFAR channel, a whisper can cross an ocean. Near reefs, the water favors crackle and hum. Under ice, sound becomes sharp and thin. Some shores speak with stones instead of sand. Waves roll pebbles and polish them smooth through winter. The beach answers with a low, even clatter. In summer, sand returns and softens the voice. A tide pool is a brief world that opens twice each day. Heat and salt climb as the sun works. Anemones close, crabs tuck in, snails move higher. The return tide resets the rules without comment. Sea turtles follow maps written in the planet itself. As hatchlings, they imprint on the beach and the field. Years later, they cross back with clear aim. The beach receives them as if no time passed. Milky seas sometimes glow for hours under cloud. The light spreads wide and even across the surface. The wake does not flare because everything is already lit. Bacteria switch on together and stay on. A long ridge stitches the floor like a seam. New crust forms quietly along that line. Lava cools, cracks, and turns to stone. The ocean hides the work under kilometers of water. Elsewhere, a cold river creeps along the bottom. It begins where winter makes brine heavy and sure. The flow slides into trenches and out again. It may take centuries to find a place to rise. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. If your eyes begin to close, let the thought be simple. The water is not in a hurry and remembers the route. When you wake, we will step into the next room. The story will continue in the same quiet voice. Morning sits lightly on the water, and the surface decides to be simple. Small waves line up in clean rows from a distant fetch. Under that order, another order holds. A broad thermocline separates warm from cool, like a quiet shelf inside the sea. Most creatures choose a side and visit the other only when needed. A research buoy marks the spot with a single yellow shape. Instruments hang below it like a small ladder. They listen to currents and temperature and send short reports home. The ocean accepts the attention and continues at its own speed. Far offshore, drifting floats rise and fall on planned paths. They dive to great depth, rest, then return and speak by radio. Thousands wander the basins and build a moving map. Their notes add up to a heartbeat we can read. A line of seabirds traces the boundary between water masses. The air above one side feels cooler and sharper. The other side smells faintly sweet, as if a bloom is near. Birds use small clues the way we use road signs. Where wind runs along a long coast, the sea answers by lifting cold water. Upwelling feeds the surface with nutrients from depth. Bays turn green and the sound of birds thickens. When wind relaxes, blue returns and the room is tidy again. Estuaries collect the stories of rivers and turn them into salt and sound. Tides fold fresh water back and forth above the denser sea. Mud builds flat, shining stages where small workers leave marks. The marks vanish at high water without complaint. A tidal bore travels inland in certain rivers with a low pushing wall. It lifts boats and then sets them down with a small shrug. Fish ride with surprise and then regroup. The river resumes its rule, and no one holds a grudge. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. On some days, the surface becomes a page crossed by narrow lanes. Langmuir streaks show where rotating cells gather whatever floats. Leaves and foam gather there, and also small lives of the skin. A kayaker can follow the lines home when fog hides the shore. Rogue waves rise from ordinary fields when conditions stack just right. A single wall appears and moves faster than your expectations. Then it passes, and the sea returns to the earlier tone. Surprise is part of the arithmetic here, not a mood. Where the Atlantic meets the Mediterranean, dense water spills west. It leaves the strait as a sinking plume and finds its level in the open ocean. Far from the source, a tongue of salty water still drifts. The sea remembers where things began. In the Indian Ocean, monsoon winds switch hands with the seasons. Currents reverse and coasts change their plans. One pattern brings rain, the other brings clear skies. The ocean writes these notes long before the first cloud moves. A shelf edge can play host to tall internal tides. They rise, travel for many kilometers, and fade on distant slopes. Nutrients lift quietly into higher rooms and wait for light. Day arrives and uses the pantry without needing to ask. On a clear day, the horizon looks like a rule you cannot bend, yet satellite eyes see a different shape. The surface mounds and dips by centimeters over hidden mass. Water follows gravity even when our eyes prefer a flat story. Sea butterflies drift in open blue with wings made of shell. Their thin houses can soften in more acidic water. They keep fluttering anyway, small workers in a deep field. Plankton nets bring them up like scattered punctuation. A bloom of coccolithophores can turn water the color of chalk. Tiny plates of calcite cover each cell and scatter light. Seen from space, swirls look like white brushstrokes on blue. Days later, the pattern fades, and the sea keeps no stain. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. In the Southern Ocean, krill gather in dense red veils. Whales, seals, and penguins share the news and arrive on time. The food chain there moves in clean links. Ice, wind, and light set the calendar, and the calendar is strict. Icebergs begin as snow and become slow blue halls. They carry old air in tiny bubbles and release it with soft snaps. Their keels plough shallow furrows and bruise the sea floor. In summer, meltwater wraps them with rings of green. Penguins commute between colony and sea with simple purpose. They read the ice and pick fast lines through it. In water, they become slender and exact. On land, they trade speed for order and do not mind the joke. A fjord narrows sound and light into careful threads. Fresh water spreads a lens across the top and presses reflections flat. Under that lens, older salt keeps to slower tasks. Winter turns the lens into a short bridge and then removes it again. Seamounts stand alone like quiet platforms in the dark. Currents rise over them and bring food to waiting mouths. Sharks patrol edges where lift is steady. Tunas circle like runners warming up before a race. The mid-ocean ridge runs like a soft seam under the basins. New crust forms where plates part and magma cools. Black smokers build chimneys that grow and crumble and grow again. The cycle is patient and needs no audience. Where plates meet, trenches accept the cold crust and guide it down. Earthquakes mark the bends with sharp notes. Far above, the sea barely changes its face. It is aware and also busy with other work. Marine snow drifts through all of this like steady weather. Flakes carry carbon toward greater depth and disappear from the bright rooms. Some is eaten on the way by small mouths with steady duty. The rest reaches the bottom and becomes part of the floor. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. A whale fall feeds the deep for years. Sharks arrive first, then slower diners, then microbes with patient tools. Bones turn to a gentle resource, and nothing is wasted. The last stage is quiet and thorough. Glass sponges build clear frames that look like frost held in air. Some guide light along thin fibers like simple cables. Their bodies filter water without hurry. In rare species, a pair of shrimp share the same house for life. In warm shallows, reefs build with strict light budgets. Algae inside coral make sugar by day, and polyps eat by night. Heat and acidity can test this partnership. Some corals bleach and then recover, some do not. Where rivers deliver too much nutrient, the sea grows rich and then short of breath. Oxygen thins in water that does not mix. Fish leave, and crabs climb ropes to stay alive. When currents return, the room clears and work resumes. Sand ripples march across the bottom under steady waves. They move a little each tide, and then a little more. Crabs write tracks between them and erase them with the next pass. Movement is the default. Stillness is the special case. On a coast of pebbles, winter speaks with a low clatter. Waves lift stones and roll them smooth and round. In summer, sand returns and softens the voice. The shore keeps both languages. Drifters shaped like tiny sails live at the surface. They tilt with wind and skim down the lanes. Some carry stingers and follow the season. Beach walkers meet them and learn to watch their step. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. A compass is useful, but the sea also writes other maps. Temperature sets lines that fish follow. Salinity draws borders that turtles respect. Sound makes corridors for whales that pass like careful trains. The Mediterranean grows saltier toward its east under clear skies. The Red Sea grows saltier still in tight heat and little rain. The Baltic stays fresher under rivers and snow. Each basin writes its own handwriting and keeps practicing it. At dawn, flying fish leave the water and hold a straight line. Their fins hum softly until they fold and land. Behind them, the surface closes like a door. The act is quick and complete. Squid rise through rooms as if climbing a careful ladder. Some jump and glide on wetted wings for meters. Lanternfish carry lights on their sides like small street plans. Night is busy in a calm way. A storm line appears on the far horizon as a darker seam. The sea stiffens and then loosens as the front arrives and passes. Swell lengthens behind it and lines up with quiet certainty. After the rain, the air tastes clean and exact. Internal waves cross a strait and meet a ridge. They break in the dark and send energy outward. Far away, a beach feels larger sets without knowing why. Causes and effects take long paths here. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. Turtles return to beaches where they imprinted as hatchlings. They cross basins with a calm aim and arrive at night. Sand remembers their tracks until morning, then lets them go. The cycle repeats with care. On certain nights, Reefs broadcast in synchronized clouds. Eggs and sperm rise like pale weather. The sea carries them and then forgets the cloud, remembering only the result. New rooms begin in small and quiet ways. A research ship lowers a rosette of bottles and a frame of sensors. Water from many depths fills clean containers. Each sample is a small square of time and space. Together, they make a patient portrait. Across the Pacific, trade winds sometimes relax. Warm water slides east, and rain shifts along with it. Later, the winds tighten and pull the warmth back. Coasts learn both patterns and make room for them. Sea ice grows patterns that look like scales and plates. Cracks open and freeze and open again. A lead acts like a road for air and light. Life gathers along the edge because edges are useful. An albatross uses the shear between fast air and slow. It turns without flapping and holds a long line across the swell. The ocean below accepts the shadow and keeps counting waves. Grace costs the bird practice, not luck. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. A brine pool waits in a shallow depression at the bottom. Its surface ripples under passing currents. The border is sharp and real. Creatures at the edge decide carefully whether to cross. A canyon head gathers dense flows on stormy nights. Sand and shells slide in a low river and rush downslope. At the mouth, the load spreads into broad fans. Gravity signs its name with sediment and then rests. Sponge grounds on the slope look like pale gardens. Water threads gently through them and leaves cleaner than before. Fish rest in shadowed hollows and move on. The scene trusts slow processes. The SOFAR channel curves sound across basins like a rail. A blue whale lets a long note go and trusts the path. Hours later, the note still holds shape. Distance becomes a friendly idea instead of a wall. The geoid is a quiet truth under every map. Small hills and wells of gravity shape the surface by centimeters. Satellites read the texture and turn it into relief. The sea is the first mirror for Earth's weight. Some coasts keep lagoons behind low islands. Passes pump water back and forth with tidy pulse. Marsh grass binds mud in strong meshes. Birds nest where waves cannot reach. When night returns, small sparks follow your paddle in certain bays. The glow appears and fades without heat. It is a simple reaction with a simple purpose. That is enough to feel like magic. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. If you are still with the water, notice how little it insists. Scenes follow one another without rush. Facts arrive and take up the space they need, then move on. When you return, the route will be easy to find again. At mid-morning, the sea looks honest. The wind is steady, swell is regular, and the surface writes neat lines that keep their distance. Under those lines, water layers hold their own borders. Warm lies over cool, light over heavy. Small lives sort themselves by comfort and only cross when the reward is clear. A drift line stretches across a bay like a quiet fence. Weed and foam gather along it with boat seeds and tiny rafts. Young fish shelter in the shade and move as the line moves. From a bluff, it looks like handwriting. From a kayak, it looks like a good decision. Closer to the beach, bars and troughs stand like soft ribs. Sets arrive, break on the outer bar, and reform with smaller force. Between two tongues of foam, a narrow lane slides seaward. This is a rip current, not a river. It builds, relaxes, shifts a little, then rests. Beyond the breakers, light lays coins on the sand in bright ovals. Each oval is a focus made by waves bending into shallow water. Fish browse the patches the way birds browse tide lines. The pattern holds while the sun is high, then fades as angles change. A headland divides the coast into two stories. On the windward side, chop stacks and breaks in short remarks. In the lee, slick bands run like mirrors under birds. The same swell reaches both sides, but the land edits the sentence. Geography is an active author. Farther out, a rope of current twists off a major flow and closes on itself. The eddy traps water that remembers another latitude. Its center warms or cools and writes a private climate for weeks. Then it finds a zipper and opens into the surrounding sea again. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. Along a rocky shore, surge breathes through narrow cuts. Water rises in a slot, pauses, and withdraws with threads of foam. Anemones flex and close, then open as if nothing happened. Limpets hold their claim with a small, quiet insistence. In clear water over stone, urchins mow kelp into empty rooms. Where sea otters hunt, the mowers thin and forests return. One change raises a roof for fish and crabs. The place keeps more shade and more life. Seagrass meadows build a slow bank the eye cannot see. Roots lock carbon in sediments for years beyond counting. When storms rake the meadow, some of that store lifts and drifts. The rest stays, a quiet ledger kept in mud. A sandbar shifts its mood with the season. Winter waves steal height and carve slopes that speak with a harsh voice. Summer swell returns finer grains and lays a soft face back down. It is the same bar, wearing another plan. Salt marshes knit land to water with patient grass. Channels wind and fork until the map looks like a careful hand. Fish nursery, storm buffer, carbon store. One place holds all these jobs. At high tide, the grass looks taller. At low tide, the jobs are easier to see. A fjord tells two tales at once. Fresh water spreads a clear lens and shows you sky twice. Beneath, older salt is slow and dark. When the river swells in spring, the lens thickens and the mirror deepens. When winter closes the door, the mirror hardens. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. Cold rivers form inside the sea when winter squeezes brine from ice. The heavy water sinks and slides along the bottom, following valleys we never see. It moves like fog down a slope, then levels out and continues. It will not meet light again for a very long time. Where plates part, a seam runs in low relief. Lava appears as pillows and cools to new crust. The line wanders across basins and into far corners. Black smokers build chimneys, fall, and build again. The story repeats without drama. Manganese nodules rest on abyssal plain like patient fruit. Grains collect on a small seed, layer after layer. A lifetime adds almost nothing you can measure. The plain is a lesson in slow work. A whale fall rewrites a room's economy. Large mouths feed first, then smaller ones, then mouths so small they look like tools. Bones soften to paste and then to chemistry. In the end, the floor holds a faint outline and moves on. In the oxygen minimum layer, gills feel the cost of staying. Some animals wear the thin zone like a belt and hunt the edges. Others rise above or sink below and accept a longer commute. The layer itself shifts with seasons like a careful tide. On the slope, glass sponges hold pale shelves open to lightless water. Their frameworks catch small drift and let clean water pass. Some carry paired guests that never leave. The room is quiet and looks finished, yet it is still under construction. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. A research ship hovers over a station and lowers a rosette of bottles. Each depth claims a sample and a set of numbers. Together, they make a vertical story. Warm over cool, salty over fresh, rich over spare. The ocean accepts the attention and keeps its pace. Autonomous floats wake from a planned nap, rise, report, and sink again. Thousands write postcards from places no one visits. Their notes track heat, salt, and drift. The pattern grows clearer because the messengers never get bored. Satellites watch from far above and read subtle tells. The surface mounds where gravity leans on hidden rock. Color shifts when cells bloom and plate the water with chalk. Lines appear when internal waves ruffle the skin. Space makes a good notebook. An equatorial undercurrent contradicts the surface breeze. Warm water slides east while trades push west above it. When winds relax, the surface leans east too. Rain follows, coasts adjust, and then the balance switches signs. The sea is fluent in meetings that run long. In the Indian Ocean, the monsoon turns the calendar like a page. Winds reverse, currents answer, and clouds cross new lanes. Fishing grounds bloom here and dim there in step. People set their plans by that switch and call it normal. A strait that looks narrow can carry tall internal waves. They run for kilometers and fold when they meet a slope. The breaking is silent and unseen, but nutrients rise for the day. Breakfast for the surface is cooked in the dark. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. On a still afternoon, the horizon blurs into a single tone. Far out, a darker sea marks a front moving in. Before the first rain, the air tastes clean and exact. The front passes, swell lengthens, and the deck relaxes. A rogue wave appears where sums agree in the worst way. Wind, current, and swell stack into a single wall. Then the wall leaves and the arithmetic returns to normal. The sea forgives the surprise by forgetting quickly. Under certain skies, entire seas glow pale for hours. Milky light spreads even under thick cloud. The wake does not flare because everything already shines. Bacteria switch on together and make a calm field. In warm bays at night, small sparks follow an oar. Bioluminescent plankton flash when disturbed and then go dark. Kayaks draw neat letters that erase themselves at once. The water keeps no record, but you do. Turtles cross basins with quiet purpose and return to their first beach. They follow a map written in the planet's field, an old memory. Tracks shine silver at night and vanish by morning. The cycle repeats with care. Whales use a sound corridor that bends noise across basins. Low notes travel farther than sight ever could. A call released at dawn arrives in another dawn. Letters often fail us. These vowels do not. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. Sargassum rafts gather small lives into slow towns. Crabs carry houses, fish hide under shade, and snails browse. The town drifts, grows, splits, and sometimes meets ashore. The meeting is brief. The sea prefers motion. A log falls from a river and starts its own voyage. Barnacles arrive, then tiny crabs, then fishes. Birds rest between flights. Weeks later, the raft lands on a beach and breaks into smaller plans. In shallow tropical rooms, coral runs on a 2-shift schedule. Sunlight pays by day through algae in the tissue. Polyps catch food by night with small mouths and steady reach. A good year builds another floor. When heat stays too long, corals let algae go and pale. Some take them back when water cools. Some do not. Reefs that recover keep their role as walls and nurseries. Reefs that fail fall quiet. Where rivers deliver too much nutrient, the sea grows rich in the wrong way. Water stratifies and oxygen thins. Fish leave and crabs climb ropes to higher rooms. Currents return and scrub the space clean enough to begin again. Kelp forests hinge on small decisions. Urchins graze, otters hunt, storms thin the canopy, and calm days rebuild it. The balance holds when jobs stay filled. When a job goes empty, the room empties too. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. A canyon on the shelf gathers dense flows on storm nights. Sand and shells rush down slope as a liquid landslide. At the mouth, the load spreads into wide fans and rests. The floor remembers the event with broad handwriting. Beach cuffs appear as teeth along a shore after steady swell. Bows of water converge and carve small bays. The pattern repeats until wind or angle changes. Morning brings one version, evening another. Along some coasts, dunes walk inland under a high, dry wind. Grass catches sand and builds new steps that slow the march. Behind, wetlands hide in lee and hold birds and water. The sea reshapes land and then offers shelter. A tide pool opens twice a day and runs on a short clock. Heat climbs, salt rises, oxygen falls, then the door opens again. Residents know the script and keep their moves small. The pool resets and asks no questions. On a pebble shore, winter tells a firm story. Waves flip stones and polish them until words turn to music. In summer, sand returns and softens the voice. The shore keeps a full vocabulary. Icebergs carry old air in their glass blue walls. They crack and roll and speak in low notes. Meltwater flows like threads and feeds nearby bloom. The berg writes shallow furrows on the floor and continues its walk. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. The geoid sits under every wave like a quiet instruction. Small hills of gravity lift the sea by centimeters. Satellites touch this texture with light and return maps we can read. From that script, we infer mountains we never see. A brine pool in the deep is a lake under a lake. Its surface ripples, its edge is sharp, and its chemistry is heavy. Creatures at the rim decide if crossing is wise. A submersible returns beaded, a souvenir of a hidden shore. Salps form transparent chains and feed on fine soup. They move by small jets and link into long trains. Blooms clear patches of water like slow filters. Pellets sink and add to the steady snow. Flying fish leave the water in neat flights. Fins hum, a line holds, then they fold and fall. Behind them, the surface closes without a trace. The act is quick and exact. Squid rise at night and write brief dashes with light. A cuttlefish changes pattern to match the stone and then moves. Lanternfish carry small lamps and keep set depths. The commute is busy and calm. An albatross turns without flapping and writes arcs above the swell. It borrows energy from the shear between fast and slow air. Miles pass with no waste. Grace is a practiced habit. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. By late day, the water chooses silver and grey. The first stars find the seam where sea meets sky. A breeze shifts one point and then returns to stillness. You can hear distance arrive as long lines of swell. Night gathers without hurry. Far offshore, a faint glow runs under cloud as ships and cities paint the low sky. Near shore, small waves fold and refold the same sentence. The beach answers with a soft reduction in sound. If you drift a little longer, you notice how the story keeps one rule. Scenes change, paths cross, and facts step forward and then aside. Yet the tone stays even. When you return, it will be easy to find the line again. The ocean remembers where we paused, and it is willing to resume. Evening takes the surface from blue to steel, and then to a darker calm. Small lines of chop lose their edges, and longer swells claim the rhythm. Far away, a front slows and turns, then decides to pass by gently. The sea chooses to be patient tonight, and most things agree. A flock of shearwaters skims the skin with exact wings. Each bird draws a line, then folds into another line without waste. They ride the pressure where wind touches water and gives a little extra lift. The surface answers with thin scratches that vanish in seconds. The shelf falls away, and the slope begins its long lean. Submarine canyons cut across it like old handwriting left by rivers. Now and then, dense, sand-laden flows plunge through those chutes on stormy nights. They reach the plain, spread wide, and rest in quiet fans. Ice forms where the map runs out of trees. Pancake discs meet and fuse, and a plain grows that moves as one piece. Open lead steam in the cold air and act like doors for breath. Seals and whales learn those doors first and use them well. A ridge lies ahead, low but long, and the moon remembers it. Internal tides rise where dense water must climb the step. They travel for many kilometers and break on distant slopes in the dark. The surface barely notices, but the pantry above is stocked by morning. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. Under a clean sky, a wide patch glows with even light. It is not from stars or cities, it is the sea itself. Bacteria turn on their lamps together and hold the glow for hours. A wake does not flare here because everything already shines. Closer to shore, not all glows are kind. Some blooms crowd water with the wrong workers and short supplies. Fish cough at the surface and then move away. A week later the room clears and the sea looks new again. A reef wakes at dusk and changes its manners. Day shapes fade and mouths appear where walls were solid. Shrimp click and small eyes gleam briefly in the beam of a torch. On certain moons, the whole city broadcasts clouds that rise like gentle weather. In a clear lagoon, parrotfish graze with slow, steady bites. Their teeth grind coral into fine powder that will become beaches. Each bite is small. The sum is not small. A new strand will seem to appear from nowhere and will owe them thanks. Glass sponges keep delicate frames open on quiet slopes. Water threads through their lattice and leaves cleaner than it arrived. Some hold a pair of shrimp that will never leave. Their house will outlast many storms and most fashions. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. A brine lake waits in a shallow bowl on the bottom. Its surface ripples under passing currents, though the room is windless. The border is sharp and honest. Creatures at the rim weigh the choice to cross as if reading a contract. Far above, a front reaches us at last as soft rain. Drops crease the surface in a fine texture, then step back. Wind lifts for a short hour and makes small white lines. Afterward, order returns, longer and slower than before. Beaches remember such nights with new shapes. Cusps appear, neat bays between small horns of sand. They line the shore like careful teeth, and then relax by morning. A different angle of swell writes a different smile. Dunes walk inland when dry wind chooses to push. Grass slows the march and builds steps from blown grains. Behind the steps, wetlands hide and hold birds and water. The coast rearranges furniture and then invites guests. A tide pool opens a temporary room twice a day. Heat climbs, salt rises, and oxygen thins while the door is closed. Residents keep their moves small and sensible. The door opens, and the script resets without commentary. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. Out beyond the bars, a quiet eddy completes a long circle. Water inside it remembers another latitude and a former season. The eddy warms, cools, and finally unzips into the main flow. Its history becomes someone else's present. A line of foam marks a front where two water masses meet. The air on one side tastes faintly sweet, another hint of a bloom. Birds attend and run small audits with accurate wings. They finish on time and file no report. A research ship lowers bottles into a calm station. Samples rise from many depths, each a square of time and place. Together, they tell a simple story. Warm over cool, light over heavy. The sea accepts the attention and keeps its pace. Autonomous floats wake, measure, speak, and dive again. Thousands write postcards from places ships rarely visit. Their notes track heat and salt with stubborn consistency. Patterns grow clearer when messengers never tire. The geoid hides under every wave like a quiet instruction. Small hills and wells of gravity lift and lower the surface by centimeters. Satellites read those bumps and draw a relief we can trust. From that script, we infer features we may never touch. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. A canyon lip gathers dense flows on harsh nights. Sand and shells rush downslope in a low, fast river. At the mouth, the load spreads into wide lobes and rests. Gravity signs its name and is done. Where plates part, crust forms quietly at a spreading center. Pillow lavas stack and cool, and black smokers build chimneys. The chimneys crumble and rebuild without stopping. The cycle is patient and needs no witness. A trench accepts old crust and guides it downward. Earthquakes mark the bends with brief, sharp notes. Above, the sea keeps a straight face and continues with its other work. Not cold, not warm, just exact. Marine snow falls through all these rooms like steady weather. Flakes carry carbon downward from bright layers to dark ones. Small mouths catch a portion. The rest reaches the floor. The snow never hurries and never stops. A whale fall changes the menu for years. Large diners feed first, then slower specialists, then microbes. Bones turn to soft paste and then fade to chemistry. In the end, only a faint outline remains on the plain. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. In the open Pacific, the trades sometimes relax. Warm water slides east and pulls rain with it. Later, the winds tighten and undo the shift. Coasts learn to make room for both patterns. An equatorial undercurrent carries water east beneath westbound breeze. It is a private hallway under a busy lobby. When winds change, the lobby moves to match the hall. Balance is not a number here. It is a conversation. Monsoon winds change hands across the Indian Ocean. Currents reverse, and fishing grounds respond in step. One season brings rain, another brings clarity. People set plans to that switch and call it ordinary. A strait with a shallow sill breeds tall internal waves. They run for many kilometers and fold on far slopes in darkness. Nutrients lift into higher rooms and wait for dawn. Breakfast arrives on time with no noise. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. On a quiet night, an albatross writes slow arcs above the swell. It borrows energy from the shear between fast and slow air. Miles pass with no waste, only small turns. Grace is what practice looks like from far away. Flying fish step into air for a straight, exact line. Fins hum, a shadow keeps pace below, and then they fold and land. The surface closes behind them without a trace. The act is quick and complete. Squid rise through rooms and flicker in short dashes. A cuttlefish chooses a pattern, matches stone, then moves on. Lanternfish keep set depths with tiny lamps along their sides. Night is full of errands that make sense. Near a rocky point, surge breathes through narrow cuts. Water climbs, pauses, and draws back with threads of foam. Anemones flex and then open again, as if nothing changed. Limpets keep their places with small insistence. Salt marshes bind land to water with patient roots. Channels wind in neat curves and fork into finer lines. The place holds storms gently and raises young fish in calm water. Carbon hides in mud and stays. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. Icebergs carry old air in bright blue walls. They crack and roll and speak in low notes. Meltwater threads trail behind them and feed green swirls. Their keels scratch the shelf and leave shallow scars that will heal slowly. Sea ice grows plates, cracks, and patches that open and close. A lead acts like a road for light and air under a grey sky. Life gathers along edges because edges are useful. When winter loosens, the roads widen without speeches. In fjords, fresh water spreads a lens and presses reflections flat. Under that lens, older salt keeps slower schedules. Seals draw commas on the surface and then slip under. Winter makes a short bridge and then takes it away. A barrier island steps landward in hard seasons. Overwash carries sand across and drops it behind the ridge. The island looks wounded and is only moving house. Given time, plants take hold and birds return to the new address. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. Sargassum rafts mix weed with shade and small company. Crabs build homes, fish hide, snails browse. The raft splits, grows and drifts into another wind. Sometimes it meets a shore and disbands without ceremony. Logs fall from rivers and start their own voyages. Barnacles arrive, then crabs, then fishes that like a roof. Birds rest between flights and leave when ready. Weeks later, the raft breaks into smaller plans on a beach. In warm, clear rooms, coral runs a 2-shift schedule. Algae pay by day, polyps catch by night. Heat and acidity constrain the deal. Some reefs recover, some fall quiet and wait for luck that may not come. Where rivers deliver too much nutrient, water stratifies and sighs. Oxygen thins, and crabs climb ropes to stay alive. Fish move to better rooms and return when mixing resumes. Work continues after a brief recess. A kelp forest leans and rises with the swell and keeps its roof. Urchins graze, otters hunt, storms thin, calm days rebuild. The balance holds when jobs are filled. When a role is empty, the room empties too. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. By late night, the surface levels into silver and then dark grey. Stars settle into their usual places and draw a neat arch. Far offshore, a faint glow still runs beneath cloud where ships pass. Near shore, small waves fold and refold the same sentence. If you pause here, the through line is simple. Scenes change, paths cross, facts step forward and then aside. Yet the tone stays even and the route stays clear. When you return, it will be easy to find the line again. The ocean is not in a hurry. It remembers where we paused and does not mind waiting. Ahead, there are still deeper rooms where pressure speaks plainly, still coasts that move like slow thoughts, still maps written in salt and temperature that animals read without schools. We will meet them in turn, and the water will keep our place. Night is wide, and the sea chooses a low voice. Swell moves in long lines, and the surface holds its steady gait. Far away, a storm turns and fades behind cloud. Here, water keeps even hours and lets time feel kind. Far below, trenches accept old crust and guide it downward. Their rims are crisp, and their floors are soft with long snow. Sound lowers its pitch there, and colour surrenders early. Pressure is not a threat. It is the rule of the room. Along the slopes, seeps lay shimmering films that look like hot air. Anemones open carefully. Brittle stars lift arms as fine as wire. A grenadier tilts and moves on, as if following a private plan. Nothing here wastes motion or speech. A basin holds a lake of brine inside the sea. Its surface ripples under passing currents, though no wind can reach it. The edge is sharp and honest. A shrimp weighs the line, crosses, and vanishes into heavier water. Marine snow falls through all these rooms in slow, steady weather. Flakes carry carbon to depth and feed careful mouths. What remains settles and becomes a simple layer. The plane grows by patience rather than drama. A whale that died weeks ago reaches the bottom and changes the script. Large mouths feed first, then slower workers, then microbes with exact tools. Bones soften to paste and then to chemistry. Years pass, and the floor holds only a pale outline. Glass sponges keep clear frames open to the dark. Water threads their lattice and leaves cleaner than before. Some harbor paired guests that never part. Their houses will outlast many storms and most fashions. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. Up from the plain, a ridge stitches the basins like a seam. Pillow lavas cool and crack into new crust. Black smokers build chimneys, fall, and build again. The cycle is quiet and sure. Cold, salty water sinks near winter ice and begins a long walk. It slides along valleys we never see and creeps under hills. It will not meet light again for a very long time. When it rises, the sun will be different and the coast reshaped. Above, a boundary bends sound across basins like a rail. Whales let low vowels go and trust the path. Hours later, the notes still hold their shape. Distance becomes a friendly idea rather than a wall. A rope of current peels from a major flow and closes on itself. The eddy warms or cools and writes a private season. Life gathers along its edge as if reading a quiet notice. Weeks later, it unzips and returns to the wider sea. Near the shelf break, internal tides climb an underwater stair. They run for many kilometers and break on far slopes. Nutrients lift into brighter rooms and wait for dawn. Breakfast for the surface is cooked in the dark. A research vessel holds station and lowers a ring of bottles. Each depth takes its square of water and time. Together, they draw a tidy column. Warm over cool, light over heavy. The ocean accepts the attention and keeps its pace. Satellites read the surface as if touching braille. The sea mounds where gravity leans on hidden rock and dips where it loosens. Swirls show where blooms plate the water with chalk. Lines appear where internal waves ruffle a calm skin. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. Morning returns in silver and then in soft blue. Birds write short lines across the mirror and fold them neatly. A light breeze raises small ears of ripple and then drops the pen. The day chooses a clean script. Sargassum rafts carry towns of small lives. Crabs set homes, fish hide under shade, and snails browse. The town splits, travels, and sometimes reaches ashore. It disbands without ceremony and leaves good stories behind. A log leaves a river and starts its own voyage. Barnacles arrive, then tiny crabs, then fishes that like a roof. Birds rest between flights and move on when ready. Weeks later, the raft lands and becomes smaller plans. On a coast of pebbles, winter speaks in a low clatter. Waves flip stones and polish them into round, calm syllables. Summer returns sand and softens the voice. The shore keeps both languages. Barrier islands step landward during hard seasons. Overwash carries sand across and drops it behind the ridge. The island looks wounded and is only moving house. Plants take hold and birds accept the new address. A lagoon behind the barrier acts like a cradle. Tides pump through narrow passes with a steady beat. Marsh grass binds mud into strong meshes. Young fish learn shade, edges, and simple rules. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. In fjords, a lens of fresh water presses reflections flat. Under that lens, older salt keeps slower schedules. Seals draw commas on the surface and slip under again. Winter freezes the lens into a short bridge and then removes it. Sea ice grows plates, cracks, and narrow roads of open water. A lead acts like a door for light and breath. Life gathers along edges because edges are useful. When the season loosens, the doors widen without speeches. Icebergs carry old air in glass blue walls. They crack and roll and speak in low notes. Meltwater trails behind and feeds green swirls. Their keels scratch the shelf and leave soft scars that will heal. On tropical shelves, a reef runs a 2-shift day. Algae inside coral pay by day. Polyps catch by night. Heat and acidity constrain the deal. Some reefs recover, and some fall quiet for longer than we like. A kelp forest holds its roof with steady habits. Urchins graze, otters hunt, storms thin, calm days rebuild. The balance holds when all jobs are filled. When one role is empty, the room empties too. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. A tide pool opens twice and closes twice each day. Heat climbs, salt rises, oxygen thins, then the door opens again. Residents keep their moves small and correct. The pool resets and asks no questions. Estuaries fold river and sea into one room. Fresh water spreads over denser salt and turns back with tides. Mud makes wide stages where many small workers leave marks. High water erases the handwriting without complaint. A headland divides one swell into 2 stories. Windward chop speaks in short remarks. Leeward slicks whisper and shine. Birds ride the seams and choose easy lines. The land edits the sentence without changing the idea. A front arrives as a darker seam and takes its time. Rain creases the surface, rises the smell of rope and iodine, then leaves. Swell lengthens and lines up with quiet certainty. The deck relaxes and keeps its old rhythm. In warm bays at night, small sparks follow an oar. Bioluminescent plankton flash, then vanish and leave no stain. Kayaks write bright cursive that erases itself at once. Wonder is brief and does not need to be longer. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. Turtles cross basins with calm aim and return to first beaches. They read the planet's field as if it were a clear map. Tracks shine silver in moonlight and vanish by morning. The cycle repeats with care. Flying fish step into air and hold a straight, exact line. Fins hum. A shadow keeps pace below. Then they fold and land. The surface closes behind them without a trace. The act feels complete and simple. An albatross turns without flapping and writes long arcs above swell. It borrows energy from the shear between fast and slow air. Miles pass with no waste, only small decisions. Grace looks effortless from far away. Squid rise through rooms and flicker in short dashes. A cuttlefish chooses a pattern, matches stone, then moves on. Lanternfish keep set depths with neat lamps along their sides. Night is full of errands that make sense. A canyon lip gathers dense flows on storm nights. Sand and shells rush down slope in a low, fast river. At the mouth, the load spreads into broad fans. Gravity signs and leaves. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place. By late day, the water chooses silver, then grey, then soft dark. The first stars find the seam where sea meets sky. Far offshore, a faint glow runs under cloud and draws a thin horizon. Near shore, small waves fold and refold one patient sentence. If you scan the journey behind us, the rule is plain. Scenes change, paths cross, facts step forward and step aside. The tone stays even, and the route stays clear. The ocean remembers where we paused and does not mind waiting. We have moved from bright shallows to velvet rooms, from reefs to ice and back. We touched rivers inside the sea and lakes that hide under it. We watched towns of weed drift and stones speak in winter voices. None of it asked for hurry. If your eyes feel heavy now, that is acceptable. The water is not going anywhere. When you return, the line will be easy to find again. the story will resume in the same quiet voice. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps our place.